Have you ever felt that chill creep up your spine? The one that whispers, you're not alone? On this episode of Don't Turn Around, we're diving deep into the world of the paranormal with Vanessa of Arcanum Iter. Vanessa returns to share even more bone-chilling stories from her teenage years, where the line between belief and experience blurred in terrifying ways. From pennies falling out of thin air to being nose-to-nose with unseen entities, these aren't just ghost stories. They're the moments that turned a curious mind into a lifelong seeker of the unexplained. If you think you're ready to peek beyond the veil, stay tuned.
We just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. So this has been going on for a very long time, but every time it happens, the scientists come up with a new far-fetched explanation for it. We just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. And that's what the witnesses are always describing, incredible as it is.
Welcome to Don't Turn Around. I'm Phil Rossi, and I'm so excited to have you here for today's show. This is a podcast about extraordinary stories and encounters with the unexplained and how these wild events have a profound impact on our lives. It's a space for amazing stories, and I love to hear and share stories. So if you've got a story that you'd like to share, feel free to reach out to me at don'tturnaroundpodcastinfo@gmail.com. Special thanks go out to all of my supporters who, without you, this show would not be possible. So thank you for being out there to listen. Thank you for spreading the word. And a special thanks to the Patreon pledges as well. Your support goes a very long way to keeping the lights on in the Don't Turn Around studios. So today's show, I'm very excited to welcome back a former guest. Vanessa of Arcanum Iter is back again. We did not get to all of her stories last time. We could have talked for hours and hours and hours. I had to use some restraint, but Vanessa is kind enough to be here with us again tonight to share some of her stories and, of course, engage in just another fantastic conversation. Vanessa, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, Phil. I'm so excited to be here again, talking to you and having a platform to share these creepy, spooky stories.
And I love it. I love it. I mean, I am, before I became a podcaster, before I became a paranormal investigator and researcher, I was a storyteller, be it through music, be it through, through phrase, be it through my fiction. So that's one of my favorite things about this show is it as a platform for people to share their stories. And I know you have quite a few good stories to share. So I'm going to let you lead. You
Sure.
Get in, you start wherever you want to start. And of course, I'll chime in and I'll try not to interrupt you too often because you have the spotlight. But I think you had some stories to share about a house you grew up in. Is that right?
Yes. I'm happy to take it from there. Thank you.
Yes.
So it was not the initial house I grew up in. It was the house that I moved into, I would say, as a young teenager.
Okay.
So just for background context in my personal life, at that time, my parents were divorced. They got a divorce, and my mom and my sister and I needed a place to stay before we could, move into our brand new house. It wasn't ready yet. So we moved in with my aunt and my uncle and their children at the time. And it was just for a 9-month period. Mm-hmm. But boy, did that 9 months feel like an eternity.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the house where this paranormal, I would even say poltergeist activity would happen. And so prior to that, I was, as I mentioned in our previous podcast, I was always a believer. I was always into this world. But this is the point in my life where I was actually shown the paranormal does exist, is very real, and can be very scary if you're not ready for it, or if you don't have the tools to manage it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think it can be extremely overwhelming. And I think it's interesting when being a believer, right, without experiencing, that's a faith-based occurrence, right? We are going on faith. And then suddenly when it becomes more than just faith and you are seeing tangible evidence of what you've always believed, it can be profoundly just impacting and overwhelming. And so as you tell your stories, I really want to hear what the processing was like from going from, I believe in this, I think it's very cool, I'm into it, to all of a sudden, this is my life. These stories that I've been so into, now this is my life. And I've got to hear what that was like for you.
For sure. And so I do also want to preface this by saying the people I lived with, my family, are believers as well and experiencers as well. So when I came forward with my stories, they did not poo-poo me or, shove me to the side and say, that doesn't exist. That's not real. You're making it up. They actually listened and were very cognizant of the activity in the home. Yeah. So that I was very lucky in that sense to have people believe me and listen. Though, at the time I was 13, 14. So they didn't want to scare me more than I already was. So they would kind of quell, certain experiences as much as they could. And
of course,
didn't want to work it up. Yeah. But absolutely, aunt, uncle, mother, believe me 100%. Yeah.
And that's a really interesting point. And bravo to the adults in the picture. I mean, I think with any intense experiences in life, be it paranormal or the everyday stuff that happens in life that is intense, there's an age appropriate way to explain things. It doesn't have to be the full disclosure. Honesty is everything. And let the kids, the young people ask the questions. But yeah, there's age appropriateness. And I think that probably helped keep you on this path rather than being just blasted off the path by just it being too much.
Absolutely. It helped me. They weren't gaslighting me. They said, this is real. We are experiencing stuff like this as well. It is scary. They didn't know how to manage it though. Because that wasn't their avenue in life. They accepted what was going on and just tried to manage it. And, their belief in it and belief in me really solidified that what I was going through was real. I wasn't crazy. And it really did help open the gateway to continue exploring in the future. So I do want to answer your question, going into a believer to an experiencer and that shift. So growing up, I always heard stories about the homes they lived in, with the activity, the apparitions they would see. Yeah. And as a little girl, that would fascinate me because I would go over hoping to see something or someone.
Yeah. And
I never did as a young child. And then they moved to a new house and activity still, continued to happen for them. So what we surmised was there was an entity attachment that would follow them from house to house. And they were like, okay, well, it is what it is.
Right.
So by the time my sister and mother and I moved in to their house, that's when things actually started happening for me. And they were not pleasant. They were, I will use the word torment. It was tormenting at times. Yeah. And I can just jump into a few occurrences.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay. So we're getting into the juicy stuff now. So this is the story I love to share with people because it is so bizarre and it is so wild, and it has to do with object materialization.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And can you explain that for the listeners who might not be familiar with that term?
Absolutely. Object materialization or object apportation is when an object appears out of thin air.
Okay.
It is moved from one place to another place without explanation, without any rational, logical, physical explanation.
Yeah.
It appears out of nowhere. And so in this first story I'd like to share, and it is the most creepy out of them all. So I'm going in with a banger.
I love it.
Okay. So another funny little fact about me is when I was younger, I had a phobia of copper and pennies and things like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. It must be a past life thing. I haven't gotten there yet, but it was a thing that I was very bothered by. And so, friends in high school at the time, they found out about my phobia and they would always tease me.
Of course.
Oh, Vanessa's afraid of pennies. Like, what a weird thing. And so I remember being, at a friend's house one night and they were like flicking pennies at me and I was freaking out. I didn't want them to touch me. I didn't want them around me. I was so grossed out. So fast forward to a week later, I was at home in my aunt and my uncle's house and I was getting ready for bed. So I was in the washroom doing my thing and, brushing my teeth, whatever. And so I was looking in the mirror as well. I was bending over the counter to look into the mirror. And all of a sudden, I felt what I can only describe as like cold hands running down my spine. It gave me such a shiver that I physically shivered.
Yeah.
I shivered and I kind of like shook my pajama top and I was like, oh, that was so creepy. What the hell was that? And as I shook my shirt, I heard a clink on the floor of the bathroom tiles and a penny fell off my back.
Wow.
Phil, I screamed.
Yeah, rightfully so.
This was like 11:30 at night. My family was sleeping. And so they hear me shrieking in the bathroom. My uncle runs in to my rescue right away. And he's like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, what's happening? What is this? And I jumped out of the bathroom and I basically told him what happened. And he saw the penny on the floor and he picked it up. And I never seen him do anything like this. He picked up this object that appeared out of thin air and held it in his hand and closed his eyes. And I'm like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
And he opens his eyes and he says to me, they're messing with you. The spirits of the house are just trying to scare you. They're messing with you. And I was like, well, they're doing a really great job of it.
Yeah, successful.
Very successful. So that was my first introduction into actual direct paranormal activity.
That is insane. I mean, that is like, talk about being pushed into the deep end. I mean, barring seeing an apparition, I can't think of a more intense introduction to being an experiencer. And about how old were you?
I was 14.
So you were 14. Okay. Yeah, that's old enough to, I think, understand on a different sort of level, right? We're starting to get more mature a little bit with our cognitive processes. And that must have just been, for lack of a better word, quite the mind fuck.
It was quite the mind fuck. I was terrified to live in that house. And like I said, we only lived there for a 9-month period, but it felt like an eternity. Yeah. Every night I was so afraid to go to sleep because I could sense that something else was going to happen. Something next. They had another trick up their sleeve. They were just waiting to startle me and torment me. Yeah. And they did. And they continued to do so. And I could feel their presence around me. When I would be doing my homework, I could feel, in that moment of like concentration, you're focusing on reading, it's all quiet, you're in the zone, something would break me out of that concentration and I would realize there's a presence in the room, there's something looking at me, and it would totally freak me out. And at one point, one evening, I was alone in the basement working on the computer in the zone, and I could all of a sudden something just snapped my consciousness alive, and I could sense there were eyes on me. Though I couldn't see with my physical eyes, I could feel there was something moving closer and closer and closer to the point where it was almost like nose to nose. And, I was trying to battle this film. I'm like, I have to finish this project. I have to be down here. I can't just leave. But my goodness, the tension was palpable. It wanted me to get the fuck out of the basement. And it came nose to nose with me, put in so much fear and dread into my body, emotions I've never felt before. And I had no choice but to literally evacuate. I just ran up the stairs, left the lights on, left the computer on. Something didn't want me down there, and I wasn't going to stick around to find out what it was at 14 years old.
I think at any age, that is a pretty solid judgment call when you are listening to your fear, right? Fear is not, I think there's a misconception that fear is a negative emotion. Fear is our body telling us some very important things. And so acting on that, I think acting on that was also, some of it probably was not a conscious decision, but some of it was making that sort of mature decision that I shouldn't be down here right now.
There was no choice in the matter. My body said, we are leaving.
So we're out of here. Yeah,
we're out of here. And so, as things were happening in this house, my aunt and uncle would see things like skeletal figures appear in the middle of the night, hovering above their bed. My aunt's been grabbed. She's been, I would safely assume she's experienced sleep paralysis with the things that she's shared with me. We would constantly hear knocking on the door, and we'd go answer the door. No one's there. We'd hear the telephone ring. We'd go answer it. No one's there. Constantly. Wow. This was like daily basis stuff. Yeah. Like on a daily basis, there was these interruptions to our lives. Yeah. And similar to what I just shared about being in the basement, I had another, experience where I was upstairs in the kitchen doing my homework. Yep. One night. Again, I'm doing my homework late. Everyone is sleeping. I have my textbooks on the kitchen counter. I'm focused.
Leaving it to the last minute.
Leaving it to the last minute. That French homework. Who wants to do that?
No
Not
judgment.
And I remember, again, something compelled me to look up from my book and look over the kitchen sink. And in their home, over the kitchen sink is a window.
Of course.
With blinds. And there was a drawstring. And I feel something compelled me, moved my face to look in that direction. And I didn't want to. And I was kind of fighting it. And the second I looked in that direction, the drawstring of the blinds was swinging like 180 back and forth. Back and forth, not a little tap here and there. It was like 180 degrees back and forth. And again, I just grabbed my homework, bolted up the stairs. I was like, get me the fuck out of here. What is happening? This is insane. It was insane.
That is insane. I got to ask too, a totally mundane question. Were you able to finish your homework on these nights where this would happen?
No, I would just do it the next morning. Like I couldn't even sleep that night. Yeah. I couldn't even sleep. I was so terrified. I was so afraid. I couldn't concentrate on anything else. I just kept replaying. I don't want to sound dramatic, but these are kind of traumatic experiences.
Yeah, for sure. They're
absolutely still burned into my memory over 20 years later.
And here's the thing. It's not... There will be experiences where it's literally you just get a sense that whatever's present is trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
This seems well beyond that. This is like you said, it's torment. Something wants to make you afraid and uncomfortable and just mess with you. And I got to ask as well. So you mentioned as you were getting into telling the stories that your family was convinced that something might be tagging along from location to location. Do you think this was that, or do you think it was something else that was maybe drawn to your family, just was open on that frequency and there was a presence there already and something gravitated toward it, or maybe something was already in the house that kind of became more alerted to your presence? What do you think was going on?
So, to be honest, every house that my aunt and uncle lived in, there was paranormal activity. Yeah. And I doubt that each house was haunted.
Of course.
I do believe it was an attachment that was following them.
Yeah.
Because they are open to this world. They are interested and fascinated by it. They don't poo-poo these experiences. So I think, and they have a strong light about them as well. That's what is attractive to the spirit world. It's like a moth to a flame. They see someone that is open, but also like a good person. It's an energy source. And so they would just, in my belief, they would latch on And, especially when spirit or, ghosts, the paranormal does something and then which elicits a reaction,
Yep.
they kind of feed on that energy spike. So it became like an energy source, a food source where they can thrive on. And it just was a pattern, I believe, that continued from house to house to house. And then when I ended up living with them for that period of time, then I became an additional energy source because I was so open and curious and, about that realm of existence.
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely real.
Absolutely. So open, curious, and then also adolescent, so very liminal stage of your life. A lot of just energy is part of that part of a young person's life, which certainly I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but must have also fed into the intensity of what was going on.
Absolutely. And also, I think they saw a vulnerability with a young person.
Yeah.
Because they, being 14, you don't know what like personal power is. You don't know.
No.
You kind of become a victim of your circumstances. I wasn't in a place to control what a spirit was doing to me. I was just the victim of what they were doing. They would do something to absolutely terrify me. It would elicit a response and they would feed off that energy spike. And it just continued to happen over and over. And it was horrible. But again, I didn't know how to protect myself back then. I didn't know spiritual hygiene or spirit removal techniques. So it was an unfortunate situation where it just kept getting worse and worse until I moved out.
Until you moved out. Yeah. And now, I mean, in terms of your family, of your aunt and uncle, your mom, were they aware of any spiritual hygiene techniques or setting intentions and boundaries, or were they just open to the experiences, but not knowledgeable? I don't say that in any negative way either.
And I agree. They were open, but not knowledgeable in how to keep these malevolent energies at bay.
Yeah.
In one of their homes, they did invite in a priest to do a blessing.
Yeah.
They did. And I think it helped for a little while, but then the activity in their other homes would just continue to build and build. And they would see apparitions and they would hear people speak their name, or things would be moved and they would be touched and like really creepy things. In the house that I lived in, they did not call a priest, I believe.
Yeah.
So again, just victim of the circumstances. We just had to deal with it.
We just have to deal with this. And again, too, I think, in sort of the days where we were interested in the paranormal, there wasn't as much in the media with the paranormal. It was still very fringe. And so a lot of the practical parts of the paranormal, i.e. spiritual hygiene, setting intentions, boundaries, all of that good stuff, was not really a part of it in terms of how it was being out there in the media, right? And so I think
it wasn't common knowledge at all.
No, exactly. It was just scary shit happens and you grit your teeth and you get through it or you move.
Yeah. And hope it doesn't follow you.
And hope it doesn't follow you.
Which, in their case, it did.
In their case, it did. So any other stories before we kind of move on just a little bit? And we could talk about this house the whole time. I'm comfortable with that 100%. But any other stories that jump to mind?
Before we get into like experiences in my adult life, I would just say like I did see a little boy at the end of my bed one morning.
Oh wow! When you say see,
and that was with my eyes.
Was it clear, like a person was in the room with you, or was it like you were looking through someone, kind of translucent? What was that like?
It was like looking. It was as if I was looking at someone in the room, and it was gone in a split second.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this little boy, and he must have been a toddler or maybe like 3, 4, around that young age, brown hair, dark eyes, but was not happy. Like was not not someone I care to see again.
Yeah.
Really had this somber face and expression about him. And the second I blinked, he was gone.
Do you think it was the actual spirit of a young person, or do you think it was something else wearing that guise instead?
Definitely something else wearing a guise.
Yeah.
Because the amount and level of fear that they imparted on me throughout my time period there. And I'm not talking about like being, scared and then you get over it. When my experiences would happen, they would stay with me for weeks. It was very impactful in ways I wish it never happened, kind of. It was very terrifying and frightening. I don't believe a child spirit would be capable of such imparting such dread and fear into someone.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, a whole lot of sense. In terms of processing, how would you process these occurrences?
Oh gosh. I really didn't know how to, besides, share it with my family.
Yeah.
And they really didn't have any, they believed me. They just didn't have any solutions for me. So it's just like, say an Our Father, say a Hail Mary, hope for the best.
And hope for the best.
And, I'm glad at least we were able to converse about these things at home, but I would also try to express what I was going through with my friends.
Yeah.
And my friends actually were not very open to this. They thought I was completely lying and making it up.
Right, making it up for attention.
And that was actually very hurtful for me because I'm not the type of person to create, mountains out of molehills or exaggerate or make shit up. And I was like, guys, I'm telling you the truth. Like, this really scary stuff is happening to me at home and I don't have an escape from it. Being 14, like you can't drive, you can't go anywhere. You're stuck at home.
Yeah.
And when I did have those moments at a friend's house or at school, I was really confiding in them and hoping for like an empathetic ear, not even for solutions, but just to see me in that, I can't believe you went through something so terrifying.
Yeah.
But I didn't get that. I got like, oh, you're making it up. Like, that's so stupid. That doesn't exist. And I was just like, wow, that's so hurtful. And I guess I'll never share this with you again.
That's really hard. And I think, and I thank you for sharing that and bringing that up, because I'm sure it's still tough to kind of go back to that place. It brings up a really good point, though, and I think sheds good light on the reality of these situations for young people are extremely tough. And adolescents don't need any more challenges, especially in today's day and age. But this is still happening for kids who are having these experiences where they can't probably, in some cases can't express it to their parents and their family, can't share it to their friends, and it could be incredibly isolating. So I am personally grateful that you can at least share this with your family, but it's too bad that your friends were not more supportive. Mm-hmm. But then I'm also sure, like, correct me if actually I'm going to ask, how did, looking back at your friends at that time, has the lens changed in terms of you were so hurt back then, and do you view it any differently today looking back?
So I understand why I was hurt. It's because I wasn't understood. Being misunderstood is like is a theme of my soul journey in this lifetime.
I get
and
that.
so all I ever wanted to do was be understood with like these experiences or, other ideas and creative things I wanted to do in my life. And like, I was just never really fully got. And you want to be seen and celebrated and acknowledged. Yeah. And, as I grew up, I found myself sharing these experiences as well, and meeting the same type of energy, like skeptics. Yeah. So I would be sharing this, and skeptics were like basically battling me, saying like, that's bullshit. That didn't happen. You were a kid. You were making it up, blah, blah, blah. And so then I just had to get to a point in myself and realize like, I don't need anyone else's approval to prove that these experiences were real and that they happened to me. I know without a shadow of a doubt, I was not dreaming. I was not sleeping. I have my family to verify other paranormal activity that was going on. I don't need the approval of anyone else to make this even more valid. Yeah. So once I just like severed that need for approval,
Yeah.
or to be seen or acknowledged, and just, stood strong in myself. I'm like, this is my story. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not here to convince anyone otherwise. Listen if you like, take it or not. It's not my concern.
Right. This is about me.
Yeah.
Not you. Have you ever taken the opportunity to internally speak to your younger self and say, hey, it's going to turn out okay. You're going to be okay with this. And you're actually going to feel empowered sharing these experiences?
I don't think I actually have. I don't think I've tried to tune in to Vanessa at that age.
Yeah.
And kind of adds, send her a level of comfort and support. But that would be a lovely thing to do in my next meditation.
Yeah, I was just wondering how that would be like. So we'll have to follow up. We'll
sure.
follow up on that for sure.
Thanks for that, Phil. That's that's cool. Yeah.
Of course. So what is remarkable to me is with how powerful and traumatic some of these, or most of these, we'll say, experiences were, that you continued in your interest and pursuit of the unexplained. Was there ever a gap where, as you were kind of aging out of adolescence and moving on with life and into young adulthood, that you stopped being interested or kind of cut off that part of your life, or has it been consistent?
It's consistent. I've been born to be a believer. I've been born to be an experiencer. That's just the way I was never severed from this. I was never cut off from it or deterred from it. If anything, these experiences just fed my curiosity even further, even more deeply. And I wanted to know what is really going on.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. So would you say it has provided somewhat of a drive to keep seeking out answers or seeking out more questions, as it often is in this field? Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely propelled me because I can even share some like adulthood experiences with paranormal that have been spooky.
Please.
But, reflecting back and noticing the patterns in which these spookier paranormal experiences would happen, it kind of strengthened my self-confidence, because I knew, when I start to hear the static in my ear, there's something coming in my vicinity.
Yeah.
When I feel that level of dread just pour over me, I know that there's something in the room where I'm not safe, where I feel eyes on me. All of a sudden, there's an energy and there's a presence around me that is not benevolent. So these signs over time, I've tracked them, and I now know, like, when step 1, 2, and 3 happen, it's not my ancestor coming through. It's a malevolent energy, and then I can be better prepared to manage and deal with it.
Yeah.
So and it has strengthened my spiritual ability, my like psychic and mediumship skills, and it really did propel me further into that direction. So in a way, it kind of worked in my favor. Yeah.
I mean, we use the term origin story around here, and I think that is the definition, what you've just described. So let's talk a little bit about experiences later on in life with now this understanding that you fostered over the years and being now an experiencer as an adult.
Sure. Yeah. And so I'll share 2 stories. So the first one, my sister had contacted me because there was some, she was living at home at the time, and there was some weird instances going on in her bedroom where like the family's animals would be freaking out, and which was very out of character
for them.
Very out of character. And she could also sense, there's something not right here. And so I remember I said, okay, I will come in and do a clearing for you in your room. And I could verify that there was something in the house because I had experienced something in the basement previously.
Yeah.
I could feel like I was studying tarot, and I was reading my books, and all of a sudden something caught my attention and I could feel a presence staring at me. I couldn't see it, but I could feel that there was someone else looking at me. And when I looked at them, it kind of caught them off guard because they didn't know I could sense them.
Oh, and so tell me what that felt like, because I think most of us have experienced someone, maybe just physically, right? Maybe not in the spiritual sense, but that when someone is watching us or looking at us, but you kind of know what that feels like. How would you describe that sense of surprise that you got from the other side?
Yeah. So it was almost like when I looked in their direction, they broke my concentration and I could feel something staring at me over here. When I looked in that direction, it was almost like, oh shit, she can see us or she can sense us. And then they kind of just blended into the background. I want to say they kind of got a little like, oh, I didn't realize, like it was a curiosity,
right?
But then also like they felt a little nervous.
Yeah.
That I could see them. They didn't bother me down there, so I just let them be. Yeah. But then it turns out that they were affecting other areas of the home, hence my sister's bedroom later on. So So when she contacted me for that, I went in and I asked her to leave the room because I needed to be in full concentration mode.
Yeah, for sure.
I was burning in frankincense. That's a very powerful resin that they use in churches. And I absolutely love the smell. It really elevates. I can feel it elevating my energy, and it's really beautiful for cleansing, clearing, protection. So I use it in meditation. I brought it that day to cleanse her room. So I opened the windows. I had my frankincense burning, and I would go through every corner. I can't recall exactly my process. I know I incorporated some prayer. I incorporated the use and force of my spirit team as well. And I was actually just, really standing in my own power and using that force to say, listen, whatever presence is here, you're now becoming a burden and you're becoming bothersome. So now I'm going to ask you to leave. Yeah. And so I was really forceful in walking around the room, kind of pushing and feeling and visualizing and pushing them out of the window. Like that's what I was visualizing. The smoke was clearing and I was pushing them out. Yeah. And so I will never forget this. And this is wild. And this is the first time and it's ever happened to me. So I turned around and I went to go, waft the smoke in a new direction. Yeah. And I took a step forward. And as I took a step forward, a chair in my sister's room moved so quickly, it hit the side of the bed and went on its back legs and then came down on all fours. Wow. And I said, enough now. You're out of here. Like I had to really be forceful. Yeah. And I've never seen a piece of furniture move.
I
don't even know how I remain composed in that moment.
I was going to ask, and you must have been in the zone to remain composed like that and to have such command over your emotions, and you were in response mode, not react mode. And that says a lot about you, and that's remarkable to me. But not surprising in any way.
So I kind of I checked in with my mind and I said, wow, you're really composed in this moment, with myself. But it's because I was in that deep meditative state with focus and concentration and just stuck on the goal of removing this entity out of this room, out of this house, because it was causing such uncomfortable feelings, and it was affecting people I loved and animals I loved. So that's it. Like once you cross that line, you're done with me. So you're getting removed.
You're gone.
And I couldn't believe what I saw. I took that step forward and that chair just slid against the floor, hit the back of the bed, went up on its back legs, and then crashed down. And I was like, okay, this is serious and it ends here. Yeah. You're out. And so I just continued to push it out energetically and with my spirit team. And there were no issues after that. And so I told my sister what happened after, and she was kind of like in shock. Like, do I want to sleep in there? I'm like, no, it's good now. It's good.
Yeah, it's good now. Maybe not, but maybe if I didn't finish the work, you might not want to sleep in there.
Yeah. So that was, a really
amazing,
profound experience in my adult life. That was frightening, but I had more control and more personal power and authority that I injected into that moment.
Yeah.
A second story I can share is one that occurred in Salem, Massachusetts. Yes. So this is so bizarre as well. And I'm, again, not sure how I didn't panic, but I was more curious about what was happening. Yeah. And so again, my sister and I traveled to Salem for Halloween one year. Love Witch City. Shout out to Witch City. Amazing place. We fit right in. Perfect. After a day of traveling and sightseeing and going to events and doing this and doing that, we were like so exhausted. So we got back to our Airbnb and we kind of just wanted to crash because the next day was going to be just as busy. And so I remember laying in bed and I wasn't sleeping. I was just, lights were off. She was in her bed. I was in mine. And I was trying to put myself to sleep, but was definitely awake.
Yep.
So this is when I began to sense, this is going to sound crazy, but I began to sense hands and arms coming out from under the bed that I was sleeping in. And they kind of encapsulated me. They reached out over the bed and kind of hugged me in.
Yeah.
And I said, whoa, like I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I'm not going to panic. I'm going to see where this takes me and just keep it cool. And then next, those hands were placed on my chest, and it wasn't a sexual way.
Yeah.
It was just a firm touch.
Yeah.
And I felt these hands begin to push into me.
Yeah.
And as they pushed into me, I could feel myself being pushed into the bed. And that's when I began to visualize as if I was like flying through space.
Yeah. Okay.
It was dark and I could see stars like flying by. And I was kind of like, well, we're picking up speed here. So I'm not exactly sure where I'm going. So this is now where I'm getting a little bit like a little nervous.
A little like,
yeah. I'm like, okay, we're not going to continue this. And I just remember, asserting myself and saying, okay, this is done now. This experience is over. And I kind of just shot up, opened my eyes, and I looked around and my sister's laying in bed and it's dark. And I'm like, okay, well, that was interesting. And and my sister had some unpleasant dreams that same evening. Yeah. So the energy of the home, because I believe the home was like over 200 years old that we stayed in. Yeah. And it was right across, I believe, Green Lawn Cemetery, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Beautiful old home, but definitely spirited.
Spirited. I like that. I like that a lot.
Definitely paranormal activity going on. We experienced it in different ways. So the next morning we kind of woke up and shared, and we were just like floored by what we had experienced in our own, beds in the same room.
Same room, different experiences. Yeah, for sure. Man, this is such a brilliant and beautiful contrast showing your younger self and how the experiences impacted you as a young person, and that you were a participant not by choice, but by circumstance, and that you were not able to control any aspect of the experience. You were there for the ride purely. And then in your adult life, where you found your voice and your power and your path, it's just, the contrast is amazing, seeing you now as a participant in these situations where you can't control every aspect of it, but you can control your intention, and you can set your boundaries, and you can use that power to, again, maintain those boundaries and push against and just really, really beautifully told. I really, really do appreciate you sharing those stories. Wow. What do you, I can't get the image out of my head of just the flying through space kind of concept, the void. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about that much since, as far as what that could have been all about? Was it something symbolic that was being translated to your consciousness, or were you going somewhere?
So I think I was going somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it was trying to take me somewhere, and I put the brakes on.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're taking me, because you're not one of my familiar spirits that I trust. Right. So therefore I won't allow you to take me. Yeah. I'll see, I'm interested and curious, but I'm going to put the brakes and, assert myself when I don't feel comfortable or safe. So I definitely I could feel wind on my face. It was definitely, an experience that was transcending multiple levels of reality.
Yes. Wow.
Yes. And it was pushing me, moving me somewhere, moving me to a different dimension I don't know. I couldn't even see, what this entity looked like. I just saw these creepy hands come over the bed and wrap me, like huge arms. And that's not comforting.
No, that's not comforting.
And so, I just wouldn't let it have its way with me.
Right. So my question for you is, how do you balance those moments of curiosity and also at the same time when your fear is speaking to you or your caution is speaking to you? How do you balance that? Because I know for me, there are times where I feel that apprehension, but I have that curiosity and I push the limits. And it sounds like you were pushing it a little bit. Let's see where this goes. But ultimately, how do you make that call in different situations of, okay, this has gone too far? And do you feel like that limit is different and should be or could be different for different individuals?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel comfortable to push the limits because I have done mediumship work. I know how to connect with my spirit team, and I specifically utilize them for protection. And so they're almost like a parachute, for me, or they create a soft landing for me. Yeah. So I'm comfortable to push the limits because I know that my spirit team has my back and can help, eject me from the situation when required, because they have proven that to me in waking life when I've asked them for help, support, pull me out of the situation. Yeah. They have miraculously done so. Right. They have shown up in my dreams to protect me, to provide warning messages. So I really strongly encourage, if you want to explore the unseen, the paranormal, it's good and all to have your protections and talismans and amulets in place and things like that. Yeah, but forging a strong bond with your spirit team, angels, ancestors, even local land spirits, you have to have this collaborative, reciprocal relationship with them so that when you ask for their support, they're there to back you. So I can go into these medium mystic meditations or these very vivid lucid dreams or even waking life with paranormal activity, and I know that I'm protected on a spiritual level by my team. So it gives me that sense of an extra sense of confidence that I won't be messed with as I was in the past, because I didn't have that connection with my team when I was 14 years old. Yeah. But now I do. And now I feel more confident in, dipping my toe in areas into the unknown, because I know that my spirit team has my back. They've proved that over and over to me. So I feel like if you don't have that, that would be step one.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and I can't believe we're almost wrapped up here, but
yes.
In 500 words or less, how would you recommend someone begin to approach the concept of having that spiritual team or that spiritual protection? How would someone get even started with that?
So I would say that intuition and instinct is very important to develop and refine.
Yeah.
Because your spirit team can send you all the signs in the world, but if you're not picking up on it, it's useless.
Yeah.
So trusting your intuition, understanding how your intuition and spiritual abilities work, that will enable you to better understand how you receive messages from your spirits. Are you clairvoyant? Are you clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant? Excuse me. What are your skills and strengths? Because this is the way your spirit team communicates with you.
Yeah. I like that a lot. They communicate to you through the area where you are strongest. And do you believe that we all have strength in some area that we just don't tap into or aren't aware of?
Oh, absolutely. We all have our instincts. We all have intuition. Some people are just more open to it than others, but we all have it. And a prime example is when you feel like the phone is going to ring and then it does.
Yeah. Okay.
You feel like you're going to get a knock on the door from the neighbor, and then 5 minutes later, there they are at your door asking for sugar or something. Or even in times of danger. I've had once, there's train tracks near my house, and I go for walks through the train tracks sometimes. Yeah. And, I was in the zone of being in nature and just, enjoying the natural energies. And I was, in a walking meditation, basically, where all of a sudden my intuition put up my arm in the air, like something moved, compelled me to put my arm in the air and kind of stop myself. And I looked at myself and said, what am I doing? And all of a sudden the train track arm came down and then a train was coming by. So we need to trust our physical body as well. Our spirit can even communicate through us. It might have been them coming through me saying, stop, Vanessa, pay attention. There's a train coming. And then the train.
She needs a little bit more right now. She needs a little bit more from us. Yeah. That is amazing. That is amazing. What's also amazing is that we're just about at the end here. And this is the part where I say, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I have a feeling you'll be back again. It's truly my desire to continue our discussions here for the community to be able to just benefit from your knowledge, and your insight is just invaluable. Is there any parting words that you would like to share with the listeners and viewers, because we're on YouTube now, before we wrap up?
Yeah, sure. I would love to remind everyone that intuition and instinct is a very important skill, and it will take practice, but with your ability to trust yourself, practice trusting yourself, your intuition will flourish and blossom, and it'll all make sense for you. Trust yourself. You are more wise than you know, and your body and energetic body speaks to you, and spirit speaks to you. And I just want you to remember that signs and symbols are happening all around. And if you just open to it, you will understand the messages that are coming for you to support, guide, protect. It's happening all the time. So just practice being open to it and trusting yourself, and miraculous things will happen.
That's a mic drop right there. That was just so well said. So well said. Vanessa, can you tell people where they can find you out there?
Sure. I'm mostly on Instagram. So you can find me at arcanum.iter. That's ARCANUM.ITER. That's Latin for like mysterious path.
I love that.
You can also find me on my website. Oh, it's escaping me right now, but I'm sure Phil can put it in the notes or something.
I can. I just had it up over here, but I will certainly put it in the notes. I know it's something .squaresite.com. I think it's just Arcanum Iter.
I have it, everyone. It's arcanumiter.square.site.
I was so close.
You were so close.
I was right there.
I should have known, but
hey, thank you so much, Vanessa, for being part of the show. Really appreciate
this was awesome.
Having you here.
Thank you so much, Phil.
Of course. And to you, the community, thank you so much for being here to be part of this incredible discussion. Of course, if you like what you heard and you like what you see, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications. You know the routine. You've heard it enough from all of us content creators out there. And of course, if the opportunity occurs and you happen to be on Apple Podcasts, leaving the show a glowing review, 5 stars, does a tremendous thing to get the word out there. And that's it for us on this show. Thank you so much again. We'll catch you next time.
We just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. So this has been going on for a very long time, but every time it happens, the scientists come up with a new far-fetched explanation for it. We just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. And that's what the witnesses are always